So let's assume that you have received a mail that where you need to put some signature on particular document. So once you put the signature, how you know or how the third party know that this is signature. So for example, if you see here, this document come to me for signature. So if I put the sign or if I signature this, the state will be changes from waiting for me or waiting for you to complete it. But how the third party or from the if I want to check the third party from the third party application this is actually completed or not, how can I do that? The answer is the webhook. So using the webhook, we can send the data, or maybe we can trigger the event based on the event. We can trigger some data through the REST API or integration to the third party that this action has been done. Let's say that you sign in or you put your signature there. Once you complete your signature, there will be trigger, and then it will send some data to a third party application, and the third party application will know that this signature is done, and then I should do some other action. So based on the event trigger, if we want to send some data to third party, we call that webhook. So today I'll show you that how we can configure the webhook for Adobe Acrobat Sign-In. The webhook is nothing but a application. For webhook, we need another application. So let's say that this is the Adobe application. From Adobe application, it will be trigger some, it will send some data whenever some trigger or whenever some event will be occur. Let's say that someone put the signature, maybe someone cancel the signature, or maybe someone create the web, create something like create a agreement. At that moment, the webhook will be triggered. But so where it will be triggered? So it will be triggered to a third party to let the third party know that these things happen. If you want to do some other operation, let's say that somebody once this agreement is signed in, I want to notify some user, right? So what I can do from this application, I can send that data that this agreement is signed, and after that all the recipient will be get an email by third party application. So before we configure this webhook, this is the documentation that provided by Adobe. I just want to highlight few points because during the webhook configuration I face a lot of trouble. I go to the lot of community but does not have enough content. Finally I check few things and then I am successfully able to configure that. So when you are creating a configuring webhook, these are the parameter: name, scope, URL, event, notification parameter. These things will be required. We'll set that. But only challenging thing is that when you are setting the URL, you will get constantly error that the invalid URL, something like that. This type of error you will get that. So that is the problem. This is a small problem happens for many user. I even verify that this is the these things happen to for many user. So what this document says that, so the URL that you are going to share, or maybe from that the third party URL that you are going to share as a webhook, that URL should have two methods. One is the get method and another is the post method. Using the get method, this URL will be validated. If you see this point, make sure that webhook support post request for incoming event notification and get request for the verification request. So make sure that you have two method, post and get, with the same URL. The URL has to be same, and that URL should work for post method and the get method. Secondly, that URL should not be blocked by any file. So if your URL have protected by any user ID password, then it won't work. You should be open for any of this port without any authentication. Thirdly, the URL should be available in via internet globally. If it is accessible through this any local host or any particular IP, it won't work. So it has to be so if you see the top point, the client must be include the HTTP URL that Acrobat Sign can post. So basically, the request or the URL that you are giving, that has to be contains the HTTPS. Okay, so it has to be have the HTTPS and public. So not like this local hosted. Okay, and then that's the all point all about. Now we have to be. I'll talk about that how the verification happens. So let's say that you put all this information and then try to submit that. You are getting that error in the top like that URL cannot be validated. So how? Because this, when you click that, it will do a get method, and using the get method, it will validate certain point. Okay, So I'll talk about that verifications part, verification of intended of a webhook URL. So when you are trying to send a request, right, what you will do actually in the behind the screen, what will be happen? It will send a GET request to that third party or to that endpoint, and then what will be happen once you send that data? Let's say that once you click that save that, once you are trying to save that, it will send a GET record, and then along with that in the header they will pass this client ID, and particular client ID they will pass. So they will pass a client ID which will be your actually that particular unique ID. Okay, so once they pass this client ID in the get method, in a response you should pass the 200 as a response code, like any response code 200 or 201, anything you can pass. Along with that, either in the header you need to pass that header equal to x Adobe signed client ID with the same client ID that is you are receiving, you or maybe in the body you need to pass this as a JSON key with that client ID. So whatever client ID they are passing, that same client ID you need to revert back to that webhook configuration. That way you can only save that. Okay, I'll show you in bit. So this is Adobe sign-in page, and here I'll show you that how we can configure first webhook. To configure the webhook, you can go to the API. Under this API, if you scroll down, we have an option called webhook. So using the webhook, we can interact, as we said, that we can interact with third-party application, any other application from this application called Adobe Sign. So let's plus, we have an option called plus sign. We can click the plus sign. Once we click the plus sign, we have an option called name. We can put anything. So I'm putting a name called ServiceNow at that moment. So you can put any name. Now we have a scope. So scope means account or group. So particular which account or which group you want to trigger this webhook, you can define that. So I'll select the account. So it means that account particular in this account for all these it will trigger that. Now we have to put the URL and event. So let's say that in event we can select that for which event we want to trigger that, right? So which event we want to send the data. Let's say that in the agreement, and agreement all type, like agreement created, you can separately mention that agreement created, agreement participant completed, any specific event you can select that. So I'll at that moment select that agreement all. It means that if agreement created, if agreement moved to in progress, work in progress, any state, it will be triggered that. Now in the URL, we should put a URL. So on this particular API or on the particular endpoint, I need to send the data from this application. So I have a URL. So this is my URL, and if we hit that, so basically this URL responding a valuable test is, and it's a 200 because we are getting some result. It means that we are getting 200. But what will be happening if we copy this endpoint and then paste here and try to save that? We'll get an error. Let's see first. So you can see the top we are getting an error. Why? Because this endpoint is available, but although this endpoint is available, it is not able to validate that. Okay. So as I mentioned that we have two things. First is the get call, and another is the post call. So when it is doing a get call, it is sending some client ID, and then in response, it is not getting client ID as a response or maybe header, and that's the reason it is getting failed. To complete this demonstration, I am using the ServiceNow instance. So ServiceNow is a platform where we can integrate with any of these other platforms. So first I am going to generate endpoint with the post and get. So to do that, I'll go here and then type that scripted REST. So once you click the scripted REST, it will have options, list of options. I'm going to create a new, and then for the demo purpose, I'm saying that Adobe new, something like that, because I already created for testing purpose, my own testing purpose. So I'm creating an Adobe new scripted REST service created. Now I have to create the under the scripted REST, I have to create the resources. So if you don't know the about ServiceNow, you don't need to worry about that, or you don't need to bother these stuffs. So I'll say that get data, something like that. Okay, and I'll save that. And if we click explore REST, it will give me an endpoint. Okay, so I'll copy this endpoint, and this is the endpoint where I should access that, or where I should give in to here. Before I do that, we have a called required authentication, because if we put this to incognito, let's say I'm putting this endpoint to incognito, it will ask me for the credential. But as I mentioned, it should be remove all these firewalls. So what I'll do, I'll remove this required authentication and then save that. All right. So it means that if we now put that incognito mode, it will won't ask me for any authentication. So you can see this is not it does not asking for any type of authentication. Now let's say that we should set some responses here. To set the response, what I'll do, I'll say where JSON, and I am putting some response called say test, or maybe response, say okay, and this code I am setting that here called response dot set body. Here I'll put the JSON. Now let's save that code, and if we go back to the incognito now and then put this endpoint at that moment, we can see I'm getting a message called response okay. Now this endpoint, if we put here, let's say I'm putting this again here, this new endpoint, and click save, I'll still get that same error, right? Why? Let me show you that. I'll open the postman first, and then under the postman, I will put that here, because this is the endpoint. Now once you put the endpoint, and then we'll send that method, at that moment we'll get a status post 200, and this is the response we are getting at that moment. But still, when we put that endpoint to that our webhook, we are getting the error, right? To resolve that, again I'll go to the documentation. So in the documentation, again, if you see here, what they are passing as a header in the HTTP, they are passing some client ID. So I'll copy this header, and then in the header I will put this header. Let's say I'm putting this header, okay, and let's say that header I'm passing 1234, and once we send that, I should get a response, and in this response header, I should get this data called X Adobe client, sign client. With this, whatever data will pass, the same data I should be received that, right? But at the moment, I'm not receiving, so I have to be put that way so that I can receive this information, right? To to do that, I'll go to here, and then first I'll declare a variable called where h1, something like that, and here I'll put that request dot, okay, and then what I'll do, I have to be pass this header, right? So what I'll do, I'll put that response dot set header in bracket. What is the header name? So this is my header name, and then what I should pass, I should pass h1 in bracket, h1 in bracket, this is the one. Okay, why? Because in h1 I'll receive all this header that I am passing. So if you see, when I am doing a request in the top, so these all are header we are passing. Within this header, I should get this value. To get this value, I am putting this on. So if you don't know this ServiceNow structure or how we are doing, just ignore that. In your scripting knowledge, basically you need to pass or you need to return this header. Whatever header you will receive in a get method, same header you need to response, as a response header you need to pass that. So I'll just save that, and then I'll go to this postman, and let's do that again. So at that moment I do again, and if we see that I am getting that this header, but this header value is coming undefined. I'm passing that 1234, but I am receiving as a undefined. So that has to be fixed. That to do that, what I'll do, I'll put a log sign. Say I'll put the gs.info, and then I'll verify that what all header I am getting. So I will put the JSON dot stringify, and then I will verify that what all header I am receiving, and then based on that I should respond that. So I'll go to this system log again here, and then let's say that I'm opening this here, and let's say I'm hitting that this endpoint, and if we see the logs, I'm getting these all are header, and if you see that under this header we all are getting in a small cases. Basically it is converting with the capital letter to the small letter. So what I'll do, I'll just then replace with the small letter instead of capital letter. Alright, now let's save that. I think my code should be fixed now. So if we send here, and if we scroll up, you can see whatever client ID I'm passing as a 123, for the same client ID it is returning. So it means that it is working fine. Then I'll copy this endpoint, and then I'll go back here to here, and then update that endpoint. And these are the parameter, additional parameter. If you want to pass, you can just pass that. So you just select that and simply save that. And this time I should uh, save that. So you can see it is saved. It means that the get method that we have created, it's verified and it is working fine right now. Now I'll go back to here under these here, and then I'm going to create. So as I mentioned, the get method is only for what purpose? The purpose of the get method is to verify. So verify is done. Now whenever the state will be changes, or whenever this event will be triggered, the event, our case, the event is that whenever any agreement will be changes, let's say that completed or signed, at that moment they will send some data to this third party, right? For that we need a post method. So I'm going to create a post method again. So I'll change the method equal to post, and let's say that event, something like that. So name doesn't matter. And then here I'll get the data. So let's say that I'm declaring a where data equal to request dot body dot data, and this way I'll get the data inside, and then I'll put the gs.info to see that what kind of data I am getting. So I'll put the JSON. It will get a object format, so I'll do a JSON.stringify so that it can convert to the string, and I'll verify that data. Also make sure that if you scroll down, the security option that required authentication, this has to be unchecked. So for get method we uncheck that. For post method also we have to be unchecked. So for verification or for sending the data, the required authentication will be unchecked for those two scripted resources. So it means my configuration is done now. So if we go back here at that moment and then go to the manages at that moment, we have one document or agreement is waiting for signature. Once I put the signature, the state will be changes, and then the data will be sent from this environment to this third party application here in this method, post method. And then I should get, I'm just printing this information to the log. So I'll see in this log whatever data changes will be happen. I should be able to see under this case. Here I should be able to get that. So I'll go here and then I'll click this signature option here at that moment, and then I'm putting this. So if you see here at that moment, if I refresh the log, let's see, is there anything I have received? So I have not received anything. Let's put all this information. So I'm putting any information, and then we have a signature here. I'm putting the signature. You can put anything like this one, any signature, and then I'll just apply that and then click to sign. So once I click that, so this demo is changes, this demo status is changes, and then if we refresh that our log, so now you can see that I have received these details. So this is the details I have received at that moment from the webhook, and I mean I can then validate that all these details. So let's check that. So this information sent by third party, right? So I can validate into the JSON viewer. Let's do that. So if I put here in the JSON and then your viewer, I can see that webhook ID, webhook name, the notification ID, and then I should see that event name, event date. So agreement created at that moment. I mean we can see the different events. You can see. So when I sign in, so this is the sign in email, maybe sign in JSON. So if I put here again, and then here if I see here, the event name is that agreement action completed. So this is the event name, and then event date, all this, and then I will get more details about agreement. So you can see this is the agreement ID, agreement name, agreement status. So this way we can get information from the Adobe. So that's it for today. In the next video we'll talk about that how we can, after signing, how we can get. So let's say that we receive the information that this document is signed, right, in with all the details at that moment, right? So next information we'll see that how we can actually receive the complete PDF document from the Adobe. So that's it for today. If you have any question, let me know in my comment section. Thank you very much. Have a great day.